Jenny is one of these people that never takes a vacation Sunday. Never. So she said to me, everything is going to be fine. I said, that's good because I know the Voices of Praise will rock it. And thank goodness, didn't they just rock it? And we're glad that Jenny can have a Sunday away. Jenny is camping this week, and aren't we glad that we're in air conditioning? That's right. Which is another thing that reminds me of some of the change that we've seen around here. I remember when I came from my candidating weekend, when it was a wonderful day, a weekend filled with lots of meetings and all kinds of craziness. Remember, it was raining outside when they came to pick me up, and they said, ooh, Reverend Kenny, are you okay? I said, yeah, why do you ask? It's raining outside and you're standing in the rain. I said, I haven't felt rain on this body in years. California was in a drought and it was just wonderful. But the other thing I encourage you, as you voted to call me, unanimously voted to call me as your next pastor, I said, now look, here's a challenge. Before I come here, before I move, I would like for y'all to get out of the basement and get upstairs. Yes. Because the basement is like a closet, and we have a lot to share. We need to get out of this closet. And look at, we would not fit downstairs if we were still there. Isn't it great? So thank you for making it happen. Now, we need to do a little bit more celebrating this morning. So Ms. Ricky, I want you to come over here and start telling us the news. Celebrating and about love. Don't you just love the way she looks? And guess what? She's going to talk about money. I'm not trying to so much church. God is good all the time. All the time. God is good. Let me tell you just how good God is.
We did our second fundraiser yesterday, and it was amazing. Now, the team set the goal at $2,000. We raised, are you ready?
Yeah.
$3,649. So within 3 months, we have raised over $6,000. So once again, that's because of you. So I want to just, if you are part of the fundraising team, please stand so we can recognize you. Now, if you attended on yesterday, because once again, it doesn't matter how many fundraisers we do, if we don't have anyone in attendance, it means nothing. So if you attended yesterday, would you please stand? And then last but not least, I just want to thank Pastor Kenny and Kirk for opening up their home. Their home is beautiful, but not quite as beautiful as their spirit and their heart. And we so much appreciate you guys. So very much. Thank you.
And it is such a blessing to see this church continue to transform. But it is nothing like the blessing of sharing life with her. So I thank you for being a part of it. And I will tell you, those of you looking for a partner, it happened through this church that we met. And I'm so glad that we had our first date before Kirk arrived at church. And he had planned on arriving at church, and we didn't know that. If he would have arrived at church, he would have been off limits to me. So I am glad. That's just the way I roll. But I think that there's something to be said for this text and where we have journeyed together as a congregation these last 3 years. And what a joy it has been to navigate together what it has meant for us to experience God together. For some, when I first came, you couldn't even imagine that we would pay a bill on time, right? You couldn't imagine coming back into this beautiful sanctuary. And there's still work to be done on the sanctuary, but I'm here to tell you it is not dangerous to be here, even though our ceiling might have some issues. We know that it is safe, because we have made it safe. But none of this could be done if God had not worked in each and every one of you to put a love in your heart for this church and for the ministries of this congregation. And I thank you for that, for being open to the Spirit of God to work in your lives and to be willing to be used by God to become more of the person that God had envisioned you to be. At my ordination service, even though I had spent many years as a Lutheran pastor, and by the way, not to put down any other church, but that song this morning would not be in any Lutheran church. No. Reverend Elder Darlene Gardner said, "Church, MCC Richmond, who are you in your becoming?" She challenged the congregation to be open to God moving in different ways, in ways that you had not experienced yet, in ways that for some you would be very uncomfortable, because in becoming more of the person that God had for you, it would mean that the onion layers of abuse, of brokenness, and all of that would have to come down, would have to be shed. And she said, "I'm here to tell you, I think that your pastor might be willing to lead you in some of that, in discovering what that dysfunction and brokenness is. Not because the pastor had any vindictive side, but because the pastor would bring the message of God's love and God's healing in a new way here. In a new way here. And I think for many that has happened. All within the umbrella of experiencing God's love together. And then she said, and Reverend Kenny, who are you in your becoming? In my experience, I had never had the experience of being fully who I am. And y'all know I have been willing to let my glitter out the last 3 years. I just had a small taste of what the possibilities could be when I did my internship at MCC Coachella Valley, and what a relief that was. One of those reliefs is I could never preach without a manuscript until I walked into MCC. And I have not needed a manuscript since. Because I have been able to live as the person that God had called me to be, and strip away the onion layers of that dysfunction that had been placed on me, and some that I had really enjoyed. And the onion peels of being able to hide within my brokenness, doubting that if people really saw me for who I really was, that they might call that into question. I think that's what Jesus was getting to when he said to his disciples, love each other as I have loved you. Love each other as I have loved you. Not in the way that you think people need to be loved. Not in the way that you have been taught to love. Try something new. Love people the way I have loved you. And I think that there's a different kind of love than we have in romantic love. I think that the love that Jesus is talking about is the love that affirms all human life. And this love is a love about honesty. It's a love about transparency. It's a love about respect. It's a love about kindness. It's a love that is not a doormat. A love that motivates us to stand and be proud of who we are, and at the same time, hold ourselves and others accountable for behavioral things. Right? So as Jesus told the disciples to love one another, that was a commandment that I'm not sure they fully got. Because this text in the lectionary, even though we have been hearing post-Easter, we've been hearing texts about resurrection experiences, right? Where people had been dead and then they came alive. Jesus was dead and then came alive again, to show the possibilities of what? God's love. A love that changed death. A love that rewrote history. A love that had not yet been experienced until the resurrected Jesus walked around to show those in doubt the nail-print hands, the pierced side. And as he did so, do you remember how he greeted Thomas? He said, peace be with you. Peace be with you. And if you need to know that it is I, look at my hands. And as I think about that, that's the part that can be so uncomfortable. Because as we are on our healing journey, it's realizing that love sometimes hurts. That love sometimes doesn't make sense. Because we have not yet been able to fully embrace it and live within it. And yet Jesus says, peace be with you. Love is at the center of our faith. How many times do we let it be the center of our faith? How many times do we observe our own behavior and go, ooh? Right? How many times do we act in ways that bring pain instead of even journeying health? How many times do we say things that later we regret saying? It's just a part of life. And I think that Jesus knew that in our humanness, we would need to be reminded love one another. Because we don't have to do this love thing perfectly. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. But it's the journey that's so important. It is the making amends that makes love realized. Love is usually not valued until you have to fight for it. Love is valued when you open yourself up to a new experience. When you get to a place of realizing you may not have it all figured out. And you may not be always right. Imagine the possibilities that come out from a relationship made right because of love. The thing that's so hard is when we choose not to love. And I've thought a lot about that this week. What is it that causes we human beings to get ourselves into positions when we no longer love? It never makes sense to me that in a divorce situation, that one day you proclaim great love for your spouse and then the next day you proclaim such venom and hate. What is up about that? My hunch is it's about brokenness, right? It's about coming to a place where we admit that either we need to move on in the relationship or the relationship isn't working. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It only becomes wrong when you have to make the other person a villain. Or when you have to make the other individual somebody other than who they have been created to be. Somebody other than being God's beloved. And when we recognize that all of us are God's beloved, then we might experience the joy of what Jesus said to Thomas. It's that word called peace. It's the word called peace. It can be tough. It can be tough to love when you know people are talking behind your back. It can be tough when people accuse you of doing things that you have not done. It can be hard to love when people choose to tell lies about you. Or when people hold you accountable to their own brokenness. And yet, Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. This past week, I had one of those experiences. The Thursday night in an AA group has more than doubled since they have been meeting in our building. Because you have created a space for them to hear about sobriety. Many's lives have been changed. So we were downstairs Thursday night. I forget who was with me. If you were with me, I know it was people from church. Sean was one of them, I think. Oh, no, it wasn't. All right. But I was told that there were an average of about 150 people meeting in the celebration hall. I know that every single one of those people are young people. They're millennials because I walk Bethany and I see them hanging out. We received an email this week from a neighbor talking about how difficult it was for her when our Thursday night meeting goes into the street and makes a lot of noise, and she just carried on and on and on and on. And so she asked me if I would make the group leaders aware of this, and I wrote her back an email, and I said, yes, I will be glad to tell the Thursday night AA meeting that they're making too much noise, that they're in the street too late at night. I did everything this woman asked me to do. And then I sent the concern to the AA people. The AA people the next day came to me and apologized. They had let their meeting go on too late until 10:15 the Thursday before. They said, we are so sorry. How can we make this right? I said, leave the property at 9:45 like you're supposed to. Continue to park at the parking lot of the Baptist church and smile when you leave because you know the neighbors are watching. Just smile. I want you to know that I was called a foul word by this neighbor. And I was stunned because she said, are you the pastor of this church? I said, well, yes, I am. I don't think I've met you yet. And then she said, you're a... And I was like, oh, wow. I said, why would you call me that? Why would you call me that? And this is what she said. You are making me responsible for my own reality because you said if this happens again, I suggest that you simply call the Richmond Police Department so that you can have peace. How many of us do the exact same thing? It may not be the cause of an AA meeting. It may not be noise that is driving you nuts. But when somebody else says, be responsible for your own behavior and gives you a tool to use that might bring you some peace, how many of us want to blame somebody else and then call them a foul name simply because they gave us a solution that we did not like? Do you relate to that, church? Yes. Yes. And yet at the same time, we are called to love one another the way Jesus loves us. I can tell you, I am not intimately in love with that person that called me a foul name. I simply said, well, I get called that 2 or 3 times in a week's time. You're the first one, probably not the best thing to say. Like, you know what? If I saw her walking on the street, I might ask her, how's that Thursday night going? How's it going? I don't know how she's going to respond, and that's none of my business. What I know is that I am not called to put her down or to treat her in any way less than a human being, the beloved of God. There are other things about loving that is really interesting, the things that are happening in this church. We too collectively have made it our mission. Through our ministries, we are saying that feeding people, feeding all of God's creatures, all people deserve to eat. The food pantry this week transitioned to being a choice food pantry. We no longer think we know what people enjoy by filling bags before they come and giving them to them as they come in through our food pantry. Now our process is, because of some grants that we have received, we've been able to buy shelving that goes on wheels. We put that shelving out on Thursday, and people could choose the canned foods that they wanted. Let me tell you, there was not a face that didn't have a huge smile on it. Because we made it possible for people for us not to think about what they wanted, but for them to select what they want. Can you imagine the building of self-esteem when we said to these people, come and choose whatever you'd like. Choose 1 can from the shelf, or 2 cans from the shelf. 1 can from the shelf. We were grateful that we had a smaller number of people at the food pantry so that we could work out this system. Tigger and her crew did a wonderful job with that. But we also had this other little critter in our church this past week. A critter who enjoyed the bread ministry. And we have been coming in saying, oh Lord, what in the world is going on? And then I looked a little bit closer the first time. We saw crumbs and bread out, and I thought, I wonder why the bread ministry left it like this. They hadn't. We had a little critter that had broken through the bread and broken through the plastic because the critter was hungry. Now, I thought maybe this was a one-time thing. It continued for about 3 days, and so I called pest masters. They came out and they said, this ain't no critter, because we saw that the tiles of the drop ceiling, where 2 of them had come down. And then some damage had been done in other places of the drop ceiling. That we fixed. So past master said, you need to call critter control. And I was like, critter control? Who knew? So I called critter control. They couldn't come out until Friday. I was like, oh Lord, have mercy. We got to get this dealt with. I've got a church here. We have a food news here. I don't know, going on and on and on and on. He goes, stop, shut up. You need to call the rustler team. And I was like, the rustler team. So he warned me, don't be put off when you talk to him. And I was like, oh Lord, somebody else calling me names. So I called the rustler team, and it did sound like somebody that I have never interacted with before. I knew he was going to be some kind of hillbilly. I just knew it. So they arrived later that morning, and he called me to let me know he was there. The only thing he didn't have was a corn cob pipe. So he said, you got a little critter in here? I said, yes. So I showed him around. He goes, no, this ain't no little critter. This is a big critter. I said, well, what do you think it is? And he said, well, it might be a feral cat, it might be a possum, or it might be a raccoon. But the reason I know it's not a squirrel is because you have ceiling tiles coming down. But we're going to catch that little varmint. And I said to him, when you catch it, what happens? And he said, well, we just get it out of your property. And I said, we will not condone killing this creature. And he looked at me like, he said, I know this is a church. I said, we believe that all creatures, all God's creatures, are deserving of respect and kindness. Now, I knew that Carol Everton and Jerry Paxton would have my eye if I let that creature get killed. So, in a couple of days' time, he did catch that critter, and let me tell you, I've never seen a raccoon. It's not one of God's prettiest creatures. And boy, they smell. But I guess if I had been crawling up a chimney stack, I'd smell and I'd look bad too. But it was important to me to remind this man again, you're not going to kill this animal, are you? And he said, I'm going to take this animal, I'm going to put it in the back of my truck, and I'm going to drop it off in the country somewhere. I said, good, because when you come back on Monday to look for the babies of this female raccoon, I'm going to ask you what you did with that raccoon, and I'm not paying you if you told me you killed him. Right? That story is indicative of how we feel about one another around here. It is not okay around here to treat others with disrespect, to be lying about them, to be talking behind their backs, to be doing things that are painful to people. Why is that? Because we are all created in the image of a loving God. We are commanded to treat other people with the same love that Jesus shows us. Even the raccoons, even the critters, even the things that drive us crazy. And I can say, in the 3 years that I have served as your pastor, it has been wonderful to see you change, to see you embrace one another, to see you week in and week out do things to help other people feel good, to feed other people, to enter into dialogue, to be able to share your passions, to be able to share what's important to you, and to also be supported as you change. Because here's the deal. When we experience the love that Jesus has for us, we are also experiencing the freedom to become the beloved of God, the way that God wants us to be. It's exactly what Reverend Darlene Garner was talking about when she said, church, who are you in your becoming? Well, you know what? We're on a great journey of becoming. You show that as you do your ministries, because we are learning what it means to be called into ministry and then to keep the ministry at the forefront of what we do. We're going to celebrate our anniversary, 41 years of walking this journey of faith. Think of all that we've experienced, from the days that we couldn't even meet as a congregation, from the days that people got arrested for congregating, to the days that we are known in Richmond, Virginia, as a place where AAs can come and get healed. Because of God's grace. The hungry people come and they are fed without question, including raccoons. Including raccoons. And what a joyful experience it is. God is calling us. God is calling us to not only own who we are in God, but also to experience newness in life because of God's love. And it is only God's love that will bring us to this awareness. So as we begin a summer-long journey of celebrating 41 years in ministry, we will highlight each and every ministry of our congregation, and we will be able to answer the question, why do we do what we do? Do we do it to be of service? Do we do it because we want to be important? Do we do it to help people? Do we do it to bring change? And as we answer that question, why we do what we do, the next part of the question is, how do we keep the main thing the main thing? When I came here, the main thing was sharing God's love with all people. Isn't that interesting? Sharing God's love with all people. That's what you said your mission statement was. And yet today we hear Jesus' commandment to love one another as Jesus loves us. It's a tall order. But I'm so glad to be on the journey with you. And I'm so glad that we don't have to do it perfectly. And you know what's important about that? As we learn and we don't do it perfectly, we open ourselves up to experience the grace of God in new ways. And how amazing is that? So here's to 6 more years of being your pastor, at least. And many more journeys of knowing what it means to journey in our becoming of complete love. Amen?
Amen.